Listen carefully. The fate of the world hangs in the balance.
Now, do lies spread faster than they used to? Of course, but so can truth. Every age is the misinformation age. People on social media like to say, I did my research, but it doesn't count if you did your research on social media.
I think you're being a little bit disingenuous. Now, what is the nature of that strangeness? We don't know what's happened here.
Yeah, go ahead. Tell me your lunatic conspiracy theory about how odd.
I don't have any lunatic conspiracy theories.
Piers, how the hell would you know that? You don't know anything.
I am told
so
by.
if you say to me,
hold on.
If you say to me,
I've been told by. I've been told by many experts in the last 36 hours.
We choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other thing, not because they are easy, but because they are hard.
Until we get the total ban on the total initiative relative to what we're going to do with more Border Patrol and more asylum officers.
President Trump?
I really don't know what he said at the end of that sentence. I don't think he knows what he said either. Look.
Did you witness the president commit a crime? Is it your testimony today?
Yes.
And what crime have you witnessed?
How much time do I have to go through it?
It is simple. You name the crime. Did you watch him steal something?
Corruption statutes, RICO and conspiracy.
What is it? What is the crime?
Why can't I say it? When I talk, right? Listen, hold on. When I come reality.
What we've got here is failure to communicate.
But why? Why are we having such difficulty effectively communicating in an age when communication is more convenient than ever before? Perhaps it is the convenience itself that is making effective communication so difficult. Before this age of mass communication, the only people who were communicating in the public square were professionals, experts, and those with the social and charismatic skills to gain the attention of a large number of people. These were people who knew how to effectively communicate, and it was for that reason that they achieved the opportunity to do so. Now every conversation and debate is public and broadcast to the entire world. The focus is shifting from effective communication to entertainment. Why have a constructive conversation when a dumpster fire will receive much more attention? Debate has devolved from the exploration of important ideas to blood sport. So how can we combat this tendency to slide into the hot cesspool of vitriol and hyperbole? We have to learn to listen carefully. The key to effective communication is active listening. If the person you're speaking to doesn't feel that he or she is being heard, then his or her defenses will go up and emotions will rise. If your interlocutor is clearly not listening to you, then you'll intuitively feel the need to be more forceful in your presentation. If everything you say is being radically misinterpreted, it may lead you to believe that the misunderstanding is intentional obtuseness.
But you're just saying that's the way it is.
Well, I'm not saying anything. It's just an observation that that's the way it is. And
so
that
you're
you can
saying
rely on.
Women have some sort of duty to sort of help fix the crisis of masculinity.
So if you want
women
domination.
want to dominate. Right, so you're saying you've done your research and women are unhappy dominating men.
I didn't say they were unhappy dominating men. I said it was a bad long-term solution.
But you're saying basically it doesn't matter if women aren't getting to the top because that's what's skewing that gender pay gap, isn't it? You're saying, well, that's just a fact of life. Women aren't necessarily going to get to the top. So you're saying that by and large, women are too agreeable to get the pay rises they deserve?
No, I'm saying that that's one component of a multivariate equation that predicts salary.
But you're saying that makes them unhappy, by and large?
I'm saying no, I'm not saying that. And I actually haven't said that so far.
You're saying it makes them miserable?
No, I said that what was making them miserable was having weak partners.
So you're saying women are just more sensible. They don't want that because it's not a nice life.
I'm saying that's part of it, definitely.
Right, so you're saying that anyone who believes in equality, whether you call them feminists, call them whatever you want to call them, should basically give up because it ain't going to happen. So you're saying give people equality of opportunity, that's fine. Still, women aren't going to make it. You're saying someone who's trying to work out their gender identity, who may well have struggled with that, had quite a
No
tough
doubt
time
they
over
struggle
the years.
with it, yeah.
You're comparing them with, Chairman Mao, who
No, just the
saw the
activists.
death. You're saying that trans activists could lead to the deaths of millions of people.
No, I'm saying that the philosophy that drives their utterances is the same philosophy that already has driven us to the deaths of millions of people.
Okay, you're just
That's
saying these
murderous.
things, though, to provoke, aren't you? I mean,
Not
you
a
are a
bit.
provocateur.
I never said
You're like
anything.
the alt-right that you hate to be compared to. You want to stir things up.
I'm only a provocateur insofar as when I say what I believe to be true, it's provocative. I don't provoke. Maybe for
You don't
humor
set out to
now
provoke.
and then. I'm not interested in provoking.
Let me just get this straight. You're saying that we should organise our societies along the lines of the lobsters.
I'm saying that it's inevitable that there will be continuity in the way that animals and human beings organize their structures. It's absolutely inevitable. And there is 1/3 of a billion years of evolutionary history behind that. Right? That's so long that 1/3 of a billion years ago, there weren't even trees.
So you're saying, like the lobsters, we're hardwired as men and women to do certain things, to sort of run along tram lines, and there's nothing we can do about it.
No, I'm not saying there's nothing we can do about it, because it's like in a chess game, right? There's lots of things that you can do, although you can't break the rules of the chess game and continue to play chess. And your biological nature is somewhat like that, is it sets the rules of the game, but within those rules you have a lot of leeway.
Once the assumption of good faith has been lost, it can be difficult and perhaps even impossible to re-establish. It can be quite challenging in the heat of the moment to rise above the confusion and remain objective, but if you continue to communicate in good faith and refuse to allow your opponent to drag you down into the rhetorical mud, then you may be able to salvage some value from the conversation. Wisdom is the reward you get for a lifetime of listening when you'd have preferred to talk. Have you ever tried to have a conversation with someone who's clearly just waiting for his or her turn to speak? This can lead to a feeling of futility. There is no point in having a conversation with such a person. For conversation to be fruitful, there needs to be a clear goal that is both valuable and achievable. It is very rare to completely change the mind of a debate opponent. The point of debate is not to win, but to think. Debate is the act of communal thinking, extending thought beyond the confines of one's own mind to that of another. When perspective is widened, accuracy may be easier to achieve. This can be understood in the analogy of sight. It can be difficult to judge the distance to an object if only one of your eyes are open. The moment you open your other eye and initiate the parallax that is facilitated by stereo vision, the distance to the object becomes much easier to determine. If two minds are analyzing a topic from different angles, there will be some intellectual parallax that will reveal information about said topic that was previously invisible. When engaging in conversation and debate, your goal should be to achieve whatever value lies in the interaction. You cannot possibly know what that value might be unless you are paying very close attention and actively searching for anything of value. Active listening is not just a courtesy, it can also be used as a powerful debate tactic. Gathering useful information from your opponent may help you craft better arguments, but it may also challenge the arguments being made by your interlocutor. The Socratic method is one of the best ways to reveal flaws in an argument. You could try to work out all of the flaws in your opponent's argument yourself, or you could have your opponent do most of the work for you. Work smart, not hard. Have you ever found yourself confounded and flustered by a small child who endlessly asks the seemingly simplistic question of why? Why is never a simple question, because there is no endpoint where the question can no longer be asked. No matter where you start, if you continue asking why, you will invariably reach a point where the only honest answer you can give is, I don't know. Why is the sky blue? Light scattering. Why does light scatter? Physics. Why is physics? I don't know. Why don't you go play outside and leave me to deal with the existential crisis you just initiated in my mind? The greatest debaters on the planet are all under the age of 5, so you should take a page from their book and keep things simple. Genuine curiosity can force your debate opponent into the unenviable position of having to explain his or her arguments from scratch, starting from first principles. If this intellectual work has not been done, and a solid foundation on the basic laws of logic cannot be demonstrated, then the argument may fall apart like a house of cards. If you keep asking why, you will either encounter intellectual bedrock or some flaws or gaps in logic that will reveal some weaknesses in the structure of the argument. This is how listening can be much more powerful than talking. We should also consider the audience. Who is the debate for? It's not for the people debating, it's for the audience. You're probably not going to significantly change the mind of your interlocutor, but you are much more likely to have a profound impact on the minds of those observing the debate. When you're actively debating someone, your defenses are up, you're locked into your position, and you have a clear, overarching agenda. Try as you might, it is very difficult to remain truly open-minded when you're the one debating. The people observing the debate are free to remain open-minded. They are relatively safe and comfortable. If their minds are changed, nobody is going to realize that in real time on live public broadcast. They are free to keep their change of mind secret until they've had enough time to think through all of the new information and formulate their new intellectual positions before they may have to defend those positions. If your mind is changed during a live debate, you might find yourself treading uncharted waters in full view of an audience. If your goal is to change the mind of your opponent, then you are setting yourself up for inevitable failure and disappointment. You are not going to change the mind of your opponent, so do not choose that as your goal. The best approach is to genuinely desire greater understanding. I'm not trying to make you think what I want you to think. The point of this video is to explore concepts of communication with a genuine curiosity. I just want to achieve greater understanding for myself and perhaps inspire the same curiosity in others. I don't believe there is any one silver bullet debate strategy that may guarantee victory in any situation, yet I do believe that we can choose to adopt a frame of mind that will allow for more effective communication and build the rest of our rhetorical style upon that solid foundation. I am actively listening and observing, and I am genuinely curious. Human communication is a fascinating phenomenon in and of itself. When it is effective, it can lead to mind-blowing revelations and achievements, and when it breaks down, the effects can range from humorously entertaining to catastrophically devastating. You'll probably agree that we should try to avoid catastrophic devastation, so it is probably a good idea for us to find ways of mitigating the breakdown of communication. One of the ways communication breaks down is when people are talking past each other. When we fail to establish clear definitions that are mutually accepted for the sake of the conversation, we're not even talking about the same things. If we're debating the broad topic of fruit, and I'm narrowly focused on apples, and you're narrowly focused on oranges, we may run into some unnecessary difficulty. In this situation, you could be describing properties of fruit that don't seem to match what I am imagining in my mind. If you say that fruit has a tough outer skin that needs to be removed before consumption, that will not align with the apples in my mind. I might think you're simply ignorant of the properties of apples, or that you are being intentionally dishonest. If we work together in good faith to establish a working definition of fruit, we could agree for the sake of conversation that we will include all types of fruit, and hopefully avoid debating apples versus oranges. Another way communication can break down is when it becomes too emotional. If you have an irrational hatred of blueberries, and the moment they're mentioned, your blood starts to boil, then the focus of the conversation will shift from fruit to your emotions.
Someone tells me that I've hurt their feelings. I say, well, I'm still waiting to hear what your point is. Right. I'm very depressed how in this country you can be told, that's offensive, as if those two words constitute an argument or a comment. Not to me, they don't. And I'm not running for anything, so I don't have to pretend to like people when I don't. Right.
Being offended is not an argument. As far as I can tell, when people claim offense, they seem to be suggesting that their interlocutors should simply refrain from saying whatever it is that they have said. I'm offended appears to mean shut up, and that's not an argument, it's an attempt to shut down the conversation. Indignancy and extreme emotional reactions seem to be very popular debate tactics these days. Some people seem to believe that he who is the most deeply offended wins the argument. There is nothing substantive to be gained from this kind of emotional manipulation. Debate is supposed to be communal thinking, not communal feeling. We may consider human emotion in our conversations, but we should not allow emotion to reign supreme over ideas. Ideas should take priority over emotions in debate. Yet another way communication is broken down is by deflection. This comes in many forms, such as introducing red herrings, deferring to strawman arguments, and deflection to exception. I could argue that oranges are orange, and you could offer the counter-argument that some oranges are green. That is true, but it doesn't invalidate my statement. If the vast majority of ripe oranges are orange, then it doesn't really matter that there may be some rare exceptions. The exception does not invalidate the rule, it reinforces it. The fact that we recognize the exceptional nature of green oranges strongly emphasizes the fact that most oranges are orange. If half of all ripe oranges were green, then a green orange would no longer be recognized as exceptional. A green orange is only exceptional because it is a commonly known fact that oranges are orange. You could also counter my argument that oranges are orange by pointing out that some apples are red. That would be a red herring argument that has nothing to do with the argument I made about oranges. You may also counter my argument about oranges being orange by pointing out how irrational it is for me to claim that oranges are magical. That would be a straw man argument, as I most certainly did not claim that oranges are magical, nor would I ever do such a thing. If all the people involved in a conversation are not actually legitimately engaging in the same conversation, then there is no real value to be attained in that conversation. If we are paying close attention and truly trying to understand all sides of an argument, we can avoid these kinds of pitfalls. If you are actively listening and considering the ideas that are being introduced, then you'll be much more likely to identify any bad faith tactics, be they intentional or otherwise, and prevent the conversation from going off the rails. It is much easier to stay on point if you have a very clear understanding of what the point actually is. If you sense that you are being drawn away from your position, you should remain firm in your position and try to draw your opponent back to the argument in which you are trying to engage. If you're playing baseball in the outfield, you may have to move to catch a ball, but once you have done so, you should return to your original position because it is the most optimal location for you to occupy when you consider the overall game. If you deviate to the right and remain there, and the next ball goes left instead, you will have to travel much further to catch that next ball than you would if you had returned to your original position in the middle of your area of the field. How do we avoid becoming overly emotional during a debate? It's best to go back to the realization of the perception of the audience. When the audience witnesses high levels of emotion, it will cast doubt on the arguments of the person who is becoming emotional. We've all observed people falling back on an emotional crutch when they lack any good, rational argument to counter a legitimate challenge to their position. Becoming emotional does not necessarily mean that your argument is incorrect, but it will often be perceived that way. If you are engaged in a debate and your interlocutor is becoming highly emotional, you should take solace in the knowledge that he or she is damaging his or her credibility. Do not follow suit and allow yourself to be dragged down into that emotional quagmire. You should also not allow that to excite you, as you may be strongly tempted to go for the throat when it is so foolishly offered to you. If you are perceived by the audience to be overly aggressive, it may make you less relatable, and you could lose their sympathy. Just remain calm and objective, and stay on point. Conversation should be viewed as a marathon, not a sprint. Learn to be comfortable in the moment, and not get bogged down dwelling on the past or crippled by anxiety about the future. Emotion clouds rational thought, and you need to maintain your ability to think rationally in order to communicate effectively. Social media has changed communication by lowering the barrier to entry. Everyone may now communicate with everyone else. If you expect everyone to engage rationally and in good faith, you are going to be disappointed with great consistency. Not everyone will be intentionally dishonest, but misinformation spreads with much greater speed and ease than the truth. Social media favors information bubbles, where whole communities of people can be trapped and never have any of their ideas properly challenged. It is not in our nature to consider that we might be wrong. We all assume that we are correct. Being wrong feels exactly the same as being right. Social media has also facilitated social and political division and entrenchment. What used to be moral opinion is now considered moral fact. If I disagree with one of your moral positions, it's not just a difference of moral opinion. You believe I am factually wrong because you consider all of your subjective moral opinions to be objective moral facts. You believe that because all of the other people in your bubble agree with you, there appears to be a widespread consensus from your perspective within that bubble. For people outside of that bubble, there is no such consensus, and your subjective opinions do not appear to be as objective as you believe them to be. I've experienced this when people have claimed that because I don't subscribe to their moral positions, I must just be ignorant and need to be educated, or re-educated, on their allegedly objective moral facts that are obviously just subjective moral opinions. Communication technology was supposed to make communication easier and more effective, but it seems to most often have the opposite effect. Ideas that made it to the public square used to be heavily refined and curated. Now a thought can pop into someone's mind and be introduced to the entire world just a few seconds later. Public communication used to be the domain of thoughtful intellectuals. Now it's ruled by seemingly brainless influencers, trolls, and provocateurs. Good faith argumentation is nowhere near as popular as the almighty hot take trash post. We cannot effectively discuss real conspiracies because of the endless number of ridiculous conspiracy theories that work to discredit the real ones. Wedge issues can be a problem, but so can the inappropriate labeling of real issues as wedge issues. Fake news is also a problem, but so is the tendency of people to automatically label anything they don't like as fake news. It can be difficult to see the forest for the trees. When anyone may be considered an expert just by achieving the perception of expertise, it destroys the value of expertise. With the kind of easy access to information we enjoy in the modern day, it has never been easier for anyone to gain the ability to appear to be an expert on any topic without actually meaningfully understanding said topic. Do we live in the information age or the misinformation age? I've experienced radical shifts in my perspective in my lifetime. Things that I used to believe wholeheartedly now seem completely ridiculous to me. It can be difficult to imagine how I could have believed things that are so obviously incorrect. As people get older, we tend to become less certain of the things we believe. Wisdom is gained when you have been humbled by the revelation of your ignorance enough times to realize that you are fallible. Being wrong is nowhere near as bad as remaining wrong because you are too proud to admit that you're wrong. Acceptance of your ignorance is the first step toward knowledge. Asking questions is usually considered a good thing to do, but asking questions is an admission of ignorance. If curiosity is considered virtuous, then we should not be embarrassed by our ignorance. We should also be just as skeptical of our own beliefs as any others, especially the ones to which we are emotionally invested. If being wrong feels the same as being right, then you need to establish strong rational justification for your beliefs. It's not always going to be possible to objectively verify everything that you believe with scientific accuracy, but if you're going to argue in favor of your beliefs in a public forum, then you should at least have good reasons for holding your beliefs. If you have good reasons and rational arguments to support your beliefs, this will help you remain calm during a debate. The more solid is your understanding of a topic, the more confident you will be arguing in favor of that topic. Confidence is contagious, and people will be more likely to value your opinion if it is presented with genuine confidence. We should also always be aware of this phenomenon and try not to fall victim to artificial confidence. There are plenty of people on the internet telling lies with tremendous confidence. Talk is cheap, so you should always ask for receipts. Now we return to the question I posed at the beginning of this video. Why are we having such difficulty communicating? Because communication is extremely complex. It is a miracle that effective communication is even possible. It should not be taken for granted, and we should all accept the responsibility of learning how to effectively communicate by first admitting our ignorance, and then beginning to ask questions that might increase our knowledge and wisdom on the topic. We should widen our perspective beyond the desire to make a single point in conversation and view the complexity of the whole of the conversation. A conversation should be viewed like a game. There are individual arguments and also the overall meta strategy. If you have the necessary knowledge and you know what your goal is, then you can remain objective, calm, and confident. But the most valuable piece of advice I can give was the opening statement of this video. Listen carefully.